They were almost home, this crew were almost home when we believe that they had the misfortune to be intercepted by a German night fighter ace called Oberst Gunther Radusch. Now he claimed a kill in this area at around 5:30 a.m. on the 20th of February. So we believe that he was probably the person that shot them down. The plane went either into the sea or into the Grevelingen, if I say that right, the Grevelingen Lake. We're not totally sure. And it was a disastrous mission to Leipzig. 550 men were either killed or went missing that night. 550. And the problem was, well, there were many problems with that raid. Basically, the winds had been predicted, the weather forecast was wrong. The winds were a lot stronger than people thought they would be. So some of the planes got to the target too early. They had to circle around the target. There were collisions. They had to do dog legs to lose time to get to the target. But the major problem was that the night fighters, German night fighters, through a combination of factors, found the bomber stream very early. Almost as soon as they crossed the Dutch coast, the German night fighters followed them all the way to the target, and quite a lot all the way back as well. So there are stories of people who survived the mission just looking out and seeing planes going down all the time, just being shot down. Now, I'd like to tell you briefly about the men that we are remembering today. The pilot, Paul Wright, was a student at Oxford University. Paul was described by those who knew them, and you can probably see he's not the biggest chap. He was described him as a small and quite sensitive, but he was known by his crew members as a good, reliable skipper. You can see how young he is. He was 3 weeks short of his 21st birthday when he died. The Navigator, 22-year-old Evelyn Travers-Clarke, was educated at Wellington College and Cambridge University, so it was an Oxbridge crew to an extent. He studied modern languages. He was described in his school roll of honour as decidedly a character. He could be quiet, serious, boisterous, or gay. He had a keen, shrewd intellect. He loved argument and was said to be excellent company. And he was also a lover of jazz music. And the bomb aimer, Angus Gillis, he was 21 years old, came from the silver mining town of Cobalt in Canada. His father was a miner, his mother was a shopkeeper, and his brother Archie also enlisted to fight. Sadly, Angus, or Gus, as I think the crew knew him, his father died when he was serving in England, and his letter home, which Larry O'Brien showed me today, Larry is his nephew, the letter that he wrote home, it's very touching, and he told his family that he was hopeful that the war would be over by Christmas. How many times have we heard that? So he could then return home to the family to help, be almost, I guess, sort of the head of the family in some ways. The rear gunner, Terry White, 22 years old. See, these are young guys. He came from Manchester, that's in northern England. He worked in a shoe repair factory, but he had plans to become a teacher, apparently. He was the smallest man in the crew, which was ideal for someone who was as a rear gunner. But he was a very good football player, and also apparently a very good dancer. He also played the violin, and the story is that he used to play Liebstram to the crew, I don't know, before the missions or at some stage when they were on base. But when you hear it, you'll hear, in my mind, how poignant and how sad that is when you hear that connection. Now, on his last home leave, his fiancée was convinced that he knew that he wouldn't be returning. And he's buried in the military cemetery, and forgive my pronunciation, of Bergen op Zoom. Bruce Stratton, he was 28, so one of the older members of the crew. He was the wireless operator, and he came from Luton in England. As you can see, he'd recently got married, and indeed his wife was pregnant with his son Clive, and Clive was born just a few months after Bruce's death. A sad story amongst many sad stories. The mid-upper gunner, that's Barney White, again 21 years old. Hadn't done a lot of travelling. He lived all his life in a little town in England, in Derbyshire. He was a fishmonger's delivery boy on a bike. His elder brother served with the Royal Navy. Now, Thomas Roe, my great uncle was, I think, 28 years old. He worked as a train fitter and came from Lydney, which is in Gloucestershire. He was a very good rugby player. He was known for his tough style of play. He married with 2 daughters. He was also said to be a very good dancer, and apparently, from what I could gather, when the crew would go home on leave, he'd be the kind of the social leader of the group, often taking them to dance halls for a good time.
Naast mij Wouter van Münster. Wouter, jij bent van Keep Them Rolling, zeg ik het goed?
Zeg je goed.
Is het nou lastig om zo'n auto nog te onderhouden qua onderdelen, qua levertijden?
Ja, lastig is misschien een groot woord, maar er gaat wel heel veel tijd in zitten. Als je het voertuig origineel wil houden, dan ben je echt veel tijd kwijt met het opsporen wereldwijd van de onderdelen. Maar het is een onderhoudsgevoelig product. Het motorblokje is in 1926 ontwerp. Ja, toen letten ze nog niet zo op zuinigheid en die dingen. Dus die zuinigheid die moet je er ook niet op toepassen.
U heeft een mooie auto. Is dat uw persoonlijk eigendom?
Nou, dat jeepje dat heb ik al 20 jaar.
U heeft deze auto al 20 jaar?
Ja. Zelf gerestaureerd.
Dat is een hele klus volgens mij.
Bijgehouden.
Ja, het ziet er goed uit.
Jawel.
Onze stichting WO2GO heeft een aantal panelen geplaatst deze week. Er zijn er nu 12 in totaal geplaatst op het eiland. 11 daarvan die gaan over voorvallen gedurende de Tweede Wereldoorlog. En dan met name over voorvallen van geallieerde toestellen die op ons eiland of nabij ons eiland zijn neergestort. Vandaag hebben we ook zo'n bijeenkomst. Voor u is het Grevelingenmeer. Als u nog een stukje verder kijkt, dan is de dam, die zullen u op dit moment niet zien wellicht. Maar daar ligt de Noordzee en ergens in dat water, daar ligt een bommenwerper van de Royal Air Force, die hier in de nacht van 20 februari 1944 is neergestort. Dat weten wij uit onderzoek, dat weten wij uit dossiers van de Royal Air Force. Wij weten inmiddels ook door studie en dankzij gelukkig ook het vinden van familie, dat daar 7 jonge jongens in zaten en die zijn daarbij ook alle 7 omgekomen. 3 van die jongens die zijn weken daarna aangespoeld. 2 op Schouwen-Duiveland en eentje op het strand bij Oudorp. De 4 andere jongens die zijn nooit meer gevonden. Dus het toestel met de 4 stoffelijke overschotten van de 4 die nooit gevonden zijn, die liggen daar nog ergens in het water. Wat we hier vandaag gaan doen is een paneel onthullen waarin onze stichting dit voorval heeft uitgebeeld. We hebben het verhaal verteld, de foto's van de jongens staan erop, foto en tekening van het vliegtuig. Onze bedoeling is om op deze manier hun herinnering levend te houden voor ons, voor onze jeugd. Maar met name ook bedoeld als eerbetoon aan 7 jonge levens die hun leven hebben gegeven voor onze vrijheid, waar wij heden ten dagen hier nog steeds van genieten. En dan roep ik er steeds bij, dat moeten we ook zeker niet als vanzelfsprekend beschouwen. U kunt dat in de krant ook helaas tot vandaag ook zien dat het ook niet vanzelfsprekend is dat iedereen in vrijheid leeft. Dus zoals we dan in het Engels zeggen, lest we forget, zodat wij het niet vergeten. Ik zou nu graag het woord geven aan de burgemeester.
Wij als gemeente en ik als bijzonder als burgemeester in het bijzonder heb enorm veel waardering voor de Stichting Tweede Wereldoorlog Goeree Overflakkee. Zij zijn in een korte tijd erin geslaagd om, denk ik, bij heel veel mensen diep te raken, waaronder mijzelf. Ik vind het heel bijzonderenswaardig dat 5 jonge mensen, die dus zelf de oorlog niet hebben meegemaakt, uiteindelijk in hun drive en ambitie er hebben voor gekozen om de historie van 40-45 te proberen door middels onder andere het project van de panelen, proberen dat voor het nageslacht te bewaren. En wij zijn dan ook bijzonder trots dat deze stichting al dit werk, belangeloos in hun vrije tijd, na jaren van speurwerk soms en na jaren van onderzoeken, details bij elkaar brengen, familieleden bij elkaar brengen, familieleden opzoeken, veteranen soms nog spreken. Kortom, de oorlog zal altijd hier op Goeree Overflakkee een plek blijven in onze geschiedenis. Wij zullen er alles aan doen om die plek ook en hetgeen er is gebeurd door te geven aan de generaties na ons. En ik denk dat een plechtigheid als vanmiddag, de combinatie met toen en nu, dat daarmee deze plechtigheid daar een bijzonder cachet aan geeft. En dat we met z'n allen in verbondenheid hier bij elkaar op de voet van de dijk, hier in Oudorp, dit met elkaar mogen herdenken en gedenken. Dank u wel.
On this special day, we, the Friends of Wickenby Airfield, are proud to join with our Dutch friends and their honoured guests to remember this crew, 3 of whom rest in Dutch soil and 4 others who have no known graves. They will always be remembered, as will the bonds that were forged between the people of Holland and the RAF during those dark war years. Finally, some years ago, a Dutch visitor to England told me the story of the little Dutch girl who was woken from her sleep by the roar of hundreds of bombers passing overhead in the night sky. Frightened by the noise, she ran to her father, crying out in fear. But her father took her hand and, looking up, said, "Don't be afraid. Listen to it, Helene. It's the music of angels." Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Murray Stephen, nephew of the Navigator, Evelyn Travers-Clarke, and I would like to speak about what this means to us personally and his family. My sister and I grew up very much aware of our uncle who was not with us, and always there was the sense that there was no, the word I suppose is closure, although it is not a very pretty word. His name is on the memorial, but it is one name in thousands of names, 20,000 names for the airmen that have no known grave. Now we have something personal to remember him by, something linked to the place where he died, and this is very, very important to us. We are very moved, particularly because we know how much the people of the Netherlands suffered during the war with the invasion and the evils that we never had to suffer in Britain. I speak in English because I think we think of the Dutch people as speaking better English than we do. But I will just chance my luck to say, dank u voor uw gastvrijheid en voor uw zorg voor uw familieleden. Thank you.